Look, I made over $13 million selling on Amazon in the past 3 years, but here's what nobody tells you. I almost lost everything multiple times. Not because the model doesn't work, but because I kept making the exact same mistakes over and over again. And the worst part, most of these mistakes were completely avoidable. If someone had just sat me down and told me what not to do, I would have saved myself months, if not years, of stress and probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, I want to walk you through the 7 mistakes that I made, the ones that cost me the most money, the ones that kept me up at night, wondering if I should just quit and go back to my 9-to-5 job. And most importantly, I'll show you exactly how I fixed each one, step by step, the same way I'd explain it to a friend over coffee. Because if you're serious about building a real Amazon business, you need to know this stuff. Not the how to find products, the stuff that you can find on YouTube, but the real mistakes that mess people up after they first get started. So let's dive into it. The first mistake was I chased hot items like an idiot. When I first started selling on Amazon, I thought I had it all figured out. I'd spent hours researching products, looking for the next big thing. The trending supplement everyone was buying, the viral brands that was all over social media, and when I found one, I felt like a genius. I remember that this specific supplement brand that I found, it was blowing up. Super high demand, decent margins, and I ordered a bunch of units and started selling it. In the first month, I made probably a couple grand, probably 4 to 5K, and I felt like I was on top of the world. The second month, another 4 to 5K, and I'm thinking, okay, this is it. I've cracked the code. By the third month, I was still crushing it. Then the month 4 came and I went to reorder the same item and I literally couldn't. The supplier was out of stock and had no idea when they would have more, so I tried looking for other sources, but I had no luck. And I searched everywhere. That 5K a month in profit stream just gone overnight, just like that. And I was back to square one, scrambling to find the next hot product. This happened over and over again. My revenue literally looked like a roller coaster. One month I'd be at 150K, next month I'd drop to 80K, then back up to 120. It was literally a roller coaster. I couldn't plan anything, I couldn't predict my income, and my cash flow was a complete mess. I'd have a great month and think, finally, I'm building something real. Then the next month, everything would fall apart. It was really exhausting, and I'd sit there at night looking at my numbers thinking, why can't it just be something stable? You know, I come from a 9-to-5 background where I'm used to consistent paycheck. But that's when it hit me that chasing trends is exciting. It feels like you're being smart, like you're staying ahead of everyone else, but it doesn't build a real business. It builds a hamster wheel. So I changed my sourcing approach altogether. I sat down and asked myself, what if I stopped trying to hit home runs? What if I just focused on hitting singles, building reliable items? Products that maybe only gave me 25% ROI, not the sexy 50% ROI or 60% that I'd get from hot trending items, but products I could reorder over and over again, month after month, year after year. So I started building a list. I found one product, test it, and if it worked, I'd add it to my revenue and reorder it again. Then I'd find another one, test it, add it to the list. And I'd made myself a rule to always find 10 to 20 products every single month. No excuses. Some month it was boring. I wasn't getting those big dopamine hits from finding unicorn products. But you know what? My revenue started going up. And that's what matters. It just kept climbing, literally like staircases. And in 3 years, I scaled my business, my Amazon business, to 13 million in sales. My highest month was 880K. Not because I found some magical products that made me rich overnight, but because I built a system that worked every single month. A system that I could count on. So my second mistake was that my work habits were literally all over the place. And this mistake is a little bit embarrassing to admit, but I'm going to tell you anyways because I know that I'm not the only one who's done this. After a big push, like when I find great new product or hit a major dollar milestone, I'd basically take the foot off the gas. I'd work like crazy for a week, stay up late, skip meals, just grinding it out. Then I hit my goals and I think, all right, I've earned a break. Let's celebrate. So I take a few days off, maybe a week, sometimes 2, and I'll tell myself I'll get back to it next week. But next week would come in and I still wouldn't feel like working, so I'll push it off to a few more days. Then I'd hit my goal and I'd think, all right, I've earned another break. So I'd celebrate. I'd take a few days off, maybe a week, sometimes 2. And I'd tell myself, I'll get back to it next week. But then next week would roll around and I still wouldn't feel like working. So I'd push it off for a few more days. Then I'd look at my numbers and start panicking because sales were dropping. I hadn't added a new product in ages. So I'd go into panic mode, work long hours for a week straight and get everything back on track. Then the cycle would repeat. Sprint, crash, sprint, crash. I'd see so many people doing this exact same thing. They work in these big bursts, then they burn out, then they have to recover. And here's the problem. You can't build a real business this way. You know what happened? I'd make progress, then I would lose it, make progress again, and then lose it again. It felt like I was running on a treadmill, putting in all this effort, but not actually moving forward. So I had to change something. I sat down and said, what's the minimum amount of work that I need to do every single week to keep this business moving forward? And I came up with a number, 8 focused hours. Every single week, minimum 8 hours. Not 20 hours one week and 0 the next. Not 30 hours one week and then taking a break for 2 weeks. Literally 8 hours every single week. And I started batching my tasks, okay? So I'd have opportunity days where all I did was hunt for new products, research suppliers, look for deals. Then I would have maintenance days where I'd only manage my existing listings, check my inventory levels, and handle any issues that would come up on the Amazon side. I stopped trying to do everything at once, and almost instantly, everything got easier. I wasn't burning out anymore. I wasn't dreading the work, and I'd sit down, do my 8 hours, and then I was done for the week. No guilt, no stress, and no panic. And here's the crazy part. I actually made more progress than when I was working those 20-hour weeks because consistent focused work beats frantic marathons every single time. If you're someone who works in bursts, I get it. I was the same way. But trust me, set a weekly minimum and stick to it. Your business will thank you. So the third mistake I made was I hired based on pricing, which was a big mistake. This one almost cost me everything. And when I first started making real money, I'm talking like 50K plus a month in profit, I knew I needed help. I couldn't do everything all by myself. So I started looking for people to hire. And like most people, I thought that I was being smart. I'd look at the hourly rate first, the cheaper the better. I'd find someone for $5 an hour and think, perfect, why would I pay someone $15 or $20 when I could get someone for $5? So I would hire them, train them up, get them set up, and for the first few weeks, everything was fine. But then the little mistakes started happening. Then, like these employees would list the wrong product, miss an important email, forget to reorder inventory, and I would have to step in and fix it, which took time. And it was time that I frankly didn't have. Then after a few months, they would quit, and I would literally have to start all over again. Find someone new, train them, and hope that things would work out. And it was exhausting, and I was spending more time managing these cheap hires than I would have spent just doing the work myself. But I kept doing it because I thought I was saving money. Then one day, a mentor actually told me something that completely changed everything. I think he said something along the lines of, stop hiring for price, start hiring for value. I didn't really understand what he meant at first, but then he started explaining it. He said, if you hire someone for $5 an hour, you get $5 an hour work. But if you hire someone for $20 an hour who's actually good, they'll produce $100 worth of work every single hour. So I tried that. I hired an executive assistant, like an EA, and I paid her pretty good. I paid her very well, actually. Way more than I thought I should, but I remember feeling nervous about it. But when that first month hit, she had already paid herself off, right? She handled the work I've been putting off for weeks. She organized my entire product pipeline. She set up systems that saved me hours every single week, and she stayed. She didn't quit after 3 months. She actually cared about the business. A players produce way more than they cost. They stay longer, they need less management, they actually solve problems instead of creating them. So now I hire a few people, but I pay them really, really well. And I measure every role by the revenue they enable or protect, not by how much they cost per hour. So if you're hiring based on price, you're doing it wrong. Trust me, I learned it the hard way. The fourth mistake was I didn't take organization seriously enough. And this mistake probably was also another major mistake that almost shut down my entire business. And I mean that literally. Because when I first started selling on Amazon, I didn't think much about organization. I thought it was just boring, tedious stuff. Something that successful people always talk about, but it didn't really matter. I tell myself that I'll organize everything later. Right now, I just need to focus on finding products and making sales. Here's what my business looked like in the beginning. I had invoices scattered literally everywhere. Some were in my emails, some were downloaded on my desktop, a few were printed out and stuffed in a drawer somewhere in my bedroom. I had no systems, no folders, no structures. I'd buy products from different places and I'd just forget where I got them from. I'd think I'll remember this, but I never did. Then one day I got an email from Amazon and they wanted to verify my invoices for one of my listings, and I kind of panicked because I knew I had the invoice. I bought the product legitimately, but I didn't actually have the actual invoice. I didn't know where it was. I literally spent hours digging through my emails, searching for the supplier's name, checking my downloads folder, checking for receipts in my bedroom, literally going through random files on my computer. And when I finally found it, I sent it over to Amazon. And a few days later, I get another email saying, your invoice has been rejected. Your listings has been removed. So I remember calling Amazon and they told me that the invoice I sent didn't have all the required information. It was missing some key details. And because I took so long to send it, they assumed I was trying to hide something. Suddenly, I had thousands of dollars of inventory that I couldn't sell, and my listings were shut down. My money was tied up in unsellable inventory, and the worst part was it was completely my fault. If I had been organized from the start, I would have had the invoices ready to go with all the right information sent within minutes, but I wasn't, and it literally costed me thousands of dollars. I remember sitting at my desk one night, literally surrounded by papers, feeling completely overwhelmed. I thought, this is it. I'm going to lose my entire business just because I couldn't be bothered to organize a few files. And that was my wake-up call. Here's the fix, and listen carefully because this is really, really, really important. I built a system, a real actual system. First, I created a master spreadsheet. Every single product I buy gets logged into the spreadsheet. Product name, supplier name, order date, invoice number, where the invoice is saved, literally everything. The second thing was I created a folder structured on my computer. One folder was called Amazon Business, and inside that, I had folders for each supplier. And inside those folders for each month, every invoice gets saved in the right place. No exceptions. And the third thing was I set up a rule in my email. Any email with invoice in the subject line automatically gets tagged and saved into a specific folder. Now when Amazon asks for an invoice, I can find it in 30 seconds, not 2 hours. And here's what's crazy. This system literally saved my business more times than I can count because Amazon doesn't give you days to respond to emails anymore. Sometimes you have 24 hours, sometimes less, and if you can't produce a clean, legitimate invoice or receipt immediately, they assume the worst and they shut you down. Being organized changed everything about how I run my business. And I used to feel like I was drowning in chaos, like my business was running me instead of the other way around. Now I feel in control. I can find anything I need in seconds. I can make smart decisions based on real data and not fuzzy memories. And here's the thing, this doesn't take much time. It takes me maybe like 5 extra minutes per order to log everything properly. 5 minutes. The fifth mistake was I blindly trusted the softwares. This one costed me a lot of money in the beginning, and it's such an easy mistake to make when you're first starting out. When you're researching products, you use these tools, right? Like SmartScout, Keepa, AZ Insight, whatever. Like there's a bunch of different softwares. These tools tell you how many units a product sells per month. They give you sales estimates, they make it look scientific. So when I first started selling, I'd look at a product, the tool would say that this item would sell 500 times a month, and I'd think, perfect, I'll order 500 units because that's what the data said. So I'd place this big order, wait for it to arrive, send it to Amazon, and then it would just sit there, like the item wouldn't sell. I'd sell maybe like 100 units in the first month, then 80 units in the next month, and I'd be sitting there with 300 units of dead inventory wondering what went wrong. Or the opposite would happen where I'd order 500 units and they'd sell out in a week. Then I'd be out of stock for 3 weeks waiting for my next shipment. Either way, I was losing money. And here's what I finally figured out. These tools are only estimates. They're not a gospel. They disagree with each other. And sometimes if you compare it, they are close, but they're also sometimes really way off. So now I test everything. If a tool tells me a product sells 500 units per month, I don't order 500 units. I order maybe 10 to 25 units to start. I call this a test order, where I send in the inventory, I watch how fast it actually sells, not what the software says. What really happens is if it sells out in 2 weeks, then I know the demand is higher than expected, so I reorder more. After 1 or 2 test orders, I have real data. That's when I can size my orders to sell out in about 30 days. And that's a sweet spot. So you don't want inventory sitting around for 3 months, but you also don't want to have inventory that sells out in days. So test your orders. Don't trust the softwares blindly. Use it as a starting point, but verify everything with real data. The sixth mistake is I only looked at today's pricing. This mistake costed me thousands of dollars, and it was so obvious in hindsight, but I didn't see it coming. And here's what would happen. I would find a product, I would check the price, and let's say it was selling for $50. I would calculate my ROI, and after my cost, I would make $15 per unit. That's 30% ROI, which is good. I would invest a few $1,000s into this item, then I'd send it to Amazon, and I'd wait for the product to go live. And right around that time my inventory arrived, the price would start dropping. Suddenly the product was selling for $40, $35, and not the initial $50. My $15 profit per unit just became $5. My 30% ROI became 10% ROI, or worse, sometimes I would actually lose $1 or $2, which is very unfortunate. And I'd sit there frustrated wondering why this kept happening to me. Then I learned about Keepa's price history feature, and everything changed. Here's what I do now. Before I buy any product, I pull up Keepa, and I look at 6 to 9 months out, looking at that price history. Not just today's price, not just this week's, 6 to 9 months. And I had one rule. I need to be downside protected. That means even at the lowest price that I see in the entire history, I still need to make at least 20% ROI. If the price is high right now, that's great. That's a bonus. I'll make more money. But I'm not counting on it staying high because prices fluctuate. Competitors come in and demand changes. So I ask myself, if this product drops to the lowest price that it's been in the last 9 months, will I still make money? And if the answer is no, I don't buy it. I don't care how good it looks today. This one change, just checking the price history, saved me from making so many bad purchases. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a product. This looks great, then check Keepa and realize, oh, this price is artificially high right now, it's going to drop. And I'd skip it. And sure enough, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, and the price will tank. So use Keepa, check the history, protect your downside. The upside will take care of itself. And the 7th mistake was I panicked every time the price dropped. In the beginning, I was obsessed with my prices, like unhealthily obsessed. I'd check my listings 5 times a day, that 10 times a day, and I'd refresh the page constantly. And the second I saw someone undercut me by even $1, I would panic. I'd immediately drop my price to match theirs, or worse, I would try to undercut them. Then someone else would undercut me and I'd drop my price again. And before I knew it, I'd enter into a ridiculous price war. My margins were disappearing and I was stressed out of my mind. I'd lie awake at night checking my phone, adjusting prices, and it was miserable. And you know what? It didn't even help because there was always going to be someone else willing to sell for less. Always. So here's what I learned. Stop reacting emotionally. I use an AI repricer now, tools like Decool or Aura. These tools adjust my prices automatically. They're based on algorithms and data, not emotions, not panic. They'll move my prices up or down based on what's actually happening in the market, how many competitors there are, how fast the product is selling, and I let them do their job. I set it and I forget it. Now I still check in, but I give it time. I usually wait around 2 weeks, 15 days before I make any major changes. Because either way, I'm not panicking. I'm not in a race to the bottom. I'm making calculated decisions based on data, and my stress levels has become it's way down now. If you're someone who's constantly adjusting prices, stop. Set it up with a repricer. Let it run for 15 days, then reevaluate. Trust me, your mental health would literally thank you. So these are the 7 mistakes that almost killed my Amazon business. They costed me hundreds of thousands of dollars and they costed me years of times. All right, they almost made me quit. But once I fixed all of these 7 mistakes, everything changed. I went from unpredictable revenue and constant stress to a calm, compounding business that makes millions of dollars each year. If you avoid the mistakes that costed me years and time and hundreds of thousands of dollars, you build something real, something stable, something that you can count on. And that's what this is actually really all about. Building a business you can rely on, not just for a few months, but for years. So take these lessons, learn from my mistakes, and go build something great. Anyways, that wraps up this YouTube video. I hope there was plenty of value that you took away. As always, leave a thumbs up on this video and subscribe for more. Also, check out my Instagram at FBAJeffrey. But thank you everyone for watching. Bye.